Hello everybody, it's Naomi Pabst here, and today I am presenting this video for you on one of my all-time favorite topics, knowing who you are. Who are you? Who am I? Is the most important question you can ever ask yourself. And the answers might be surprising because it's not about our identities, right? It's not about what our lives have taught us about who we are from birth. We're taught by society and by culture that we are somebody, a separate, discrete individual with certain identity markers, certain sort of defining data, right? Family belonging, name, race, culture, background, geography, where are you from, etc., etc. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about this topic is because all my life, as long as I can remember, my leading question by so many people, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people have asked me, what are you? What are you? People always asked me, and they were, of course, referring to my racial identity, right? What is your racial identity? Of course, that would be too crass to say directly, what are you racially? So people just said, what are you? And everyone knew that was shorthand for what race are you? Now, I was always puzzled by the what, right? What do you mean, what am I? So my favorite question has become, who are you, right? I sort of transmuted it in my mind into something deeper and more meaningful, right? So it's not about the color of your skin, but the content of your character. So who are we? Again, it goes so far beyond what we've been taught about who we are. It's not about our identity markers. Of course, that is an aspect of who we are, and it is a legitimate aspect of who we are. But who we are really is these magnificent creatures, these powerful seeds of divinity. We are gods in the flesh. We are literally these deities with magical powers, the capacity for wizardry, for creating amazing lives from no matter where we're sitting now. It's astonishing what we're capable of, and we don't know it because we're indoctrinated into cultural limitations and social limitations. So who are we? First and foremost, is we are seeds of divinity, right? And there's all this scientific evidence that we're literally stardust. So we're literally made of the same stuff as the stars. In that sense, we're the same stuff as everything. Everything is one. Every single thing is interconnected, and we're only taught to see things as discrete and disconnected and separate. It's only a conceptual framing. It's a way of seeing things in separation. Our brains are good at that. Our brains are good at taking things out of context. But who we are is this incredible magnificence, like a diamond, right? We're all these diamonds that kind of get mud and debris and dirt and various things impacted and calcified onto us. And to be all of who we are, all we have to do is kind of remove and wash off and detoxify all the things that are standing between, like who we're showing up as in the world and the actual diamond that's within us. And it helps a lot to know from the outset that who we are really within us is this diamond, this high vibrating, powerful, valuable, pure, pristine, strong, clear, radiant, shining entity. That's what we all are at our core, every one of us. And anyone who's not showing up that way in the world, and certainly we can point to the people for whom it's obvious they're not showing up that way, but even we ourselves are under our own potential, even if we don't realize it. That's one of the things I learned in my journey, my awakening journey, is how profoundly limited I was. And I thought I was the success, like I've said before, I was on this powerful journey, became a professor at Harvard, and then spent 10 years teaching at Yale, and I just thought I was on the up and up. I thought I was whole, I thought I was free, I thought I was empowered, and it turned out that I was really playing small and selling myself short and frankly off track, right? That was not my path and my destiny. And once I plugged into who I truly was, my authenticity, I was led down a whole different path from being an academic to being an intuitive, vastly different trajectories, obviously. But when I plugged into my truth, that's when I discovered there was another path that was laid out for me. So sometimes the diamond is caked with things that aren't bad, but they're misaligned. They're not in alignment with who we're meant to be. So our power, right, our personal power, which is something that's so important about us because every one of us have this tremendous power. We are powerful beings, especially when we get the social indoctrination out of the way. Again, the indoctrination is what compels us to play small, right? In fact, self-importance is one of the worst things you can be accused of. That's exactly the evidence that I'm talking about for how social indoctrination compels us to play small, to dim our light, to limit our own capacities and what's possible for us, right? To not even see creatively and imaginatively what's possible for us. So your power lies in your authenticity. And how do we plug into what that authenticity is, right? Our authenticity is who we really are. Who are we beyond the social scripts we've been handed? Who are we beyond what we've been taught and told and shown about who we are from birth through our various social foils, right? Our families, our parents, our backdrops, our schools, our churches, our religions, our ways of eating, right? Are we in a vegetarian community? What is our political backdrop, right? We all have these backdrops, these bubbles that we are sort of forged in the fires of. Every one of us is forged in a different set of fires. Like, what are yours? And then whether you wind up positioning yourself at odds with the circumstances that were around you or the teachings you were given, or whether you went with it or somewhere on that spectrum, those issues, those foils, those backdrops have fundamentally shaped and forged who every one of us is in different ways from one another. So you want to know who you are authentically. You want to plug into your personal truth, your authenticity, in the face of all that you've been taught and told and shown about yourself through your backdrops, through your influences, through the social contexts that have impacted and shaped your development. So it's critical to become authentic, to discover the truth of who we are, so that we can actually plug into our purpose. Again, we can plug into ourselves. We can plug into our socket only through plugging into our personal authenticity and our personal truth, sort of independently of what we've been taught and told about ourselves, right? To discover that in the face of what we've been taught and told. Only that way are we able to be all that it's possible to be, right? We have to commit to authenticity. In fact, we have to shift the barter most of us are in, the barter to kind of fit in or to be pleasers or to not rock the boat in our social arena, right? The performances that we put on, the roles that we play, the expectations that we cater to, in lieu of that, to choose to show up in our authenticity, even if it means kind of rocking the boat in those arenas. Again, that's where our power and possibility lies. Infinite possibilities lie in finding the strength to live from your authentic truth, even if it means rocking the boat a little bit in the realms you're familiar with, right? In your families and your cultures and your races and your sort of geographical backgrounds and sort of the contexts where there are, we can call them categorical imperatives, right? The expected norms of that category or the expected norms of that context. When we defy those norms and instead think for ourselves, see through the social indoctrination, choose for ourselves what we believe, find our own original perspectives, perceptions, it's very empowering, right? And in that is generative. That's generative, meaning the possibilities for transformation of those social arenas lie in that. The limited thinking that resides at the core of so many of what we're indoctrinated into resides at the core of plugging into our authenticity. So find your authenticity, commit to your authenticity, right? Even if it means making some waves in the in the context around you. I certainly had to do that, for instance, when I shifted from being an academic to a psychic, to an intuitive. Many people, of course, in my midst just thought I was literally crazy. People thought it was crazy that I would make such a choice, that I would sort of give up my cultural capital and my sort of social status, the status that came from being an Ivy League academic, that I would barter that readily, happily, handily for something that was much more soul-filling, soul-fueling, meaningful to me, satisfying, but that doesn't carry social status, right? But I felt I was helping so many more people by living my authentic calling, my purpose to help people using my intuitive gifts, that it was well worth the status demotion. But I had to tune out what people thought. I had to be authentic in exchange for pleasing, right? It was so very pleasing to everybody when I was like towing the line as an academic, when I was like a good, coloring inside the lines, inside the box academic, living from my mind and not really questioning the scripts and the expectations of the academic context. I was, of course, much more pleasing, but my well-being and my quality of life improved exponentially when I discovered my path, and that was an original path that defied the expectations and the norms of that category of belonging that was academia, right? I wasn't in that box. I was in it and not of it, and I was guided out of it, and I left ultimately to pursue my intuitive consulting and transformational teaching full-time. So, who are we? Just very quickly to give you some insights about the landscape of who we are. There's so many millions of ways that we can measure who we are, but if we just simply go outside of identity for now, identity meaning the data, the FYI, the list of things about ourselves that is not really who we are, but of course it's a part of who we are. I just want to quickly mention mind, body, heart, and soul as key aspects of who we are. So let's start with body. There's a lot of teaching about the body, like we are not our bodies, okay? Now, that is of course an antidote to the, very limited understanding that we are our bodies, right? Things like race that put so much stock in these bodies of ours, what these bodies look like, how they're shaped, what their particular aptitudes are, those kinds of issues as related to the body and who we are as discrete individuals in these bodies, is of course not who we really are. That's a very limited, right? When we reduce ourselves to our bodies, as we might see in magazines, right? Objectification of the human body, that's not who we are. We are not our bodies in that sense. But it's also not true, the antidote saying, we are not our bodies, as if our bodies don't count for anything and they're just irrelevant. Even this idea of like, oh, we're just meat sacks, or it's not true at all. Our bodies are these sacred, divine machines. They're like the most advanced, majestic, miraculous computer. They're these live entities, these living, breathing deities in three-dimensional form. It's incredible what we are. And so to start your journey to the self by honoring this sacred vehicle, right? Your body is your ticket to the game of life. Whatever the pros and cons of your body, whatever you might like about it, whatever you don't like about it, whatever sort of petty grievances you might have about your body, how about we just focus on the actual miracle of being alive in this sacred vehicle that's designed to take you through this entire incarnation. This is all you got. So why not just love it? Love your body and recognize its incredible powers. The body is so powerful, way more so than we realize. And our lack of love of our bodies is one of the ways that we most undermine our power, and we most sort of impact the diamond that we are, with mud and debris and gunk. If we can just love our bodies and honor them and praise them and appreciate them and take care of them and have a reverence toward them, every single bodily function, sacred and miraculous. These things we're taught to be ashamed of. It's preposterous. It's incredible what our bodies do, and every single thing we might find gross about ourselves is some sacred, miraculous process that keeps us alive, functioning optimally, enables us to live the most amazing possible lives. So taking care of your body is an amazing way to dial up your life force and your vitality. And again, those things equal magnetism, well-being, quality of life. Okay? So love your body and honor that your body is a part of who you are. It's the only ticket to the game of life that you have. Without your body, you're in spirit form. You're not here. Okay? So let's honor and love and appreciate our bodies as a part of who we are. Then we have our minds. Our minds is what we usually most identify with as people because we put a lot of stock in our thoughts. So thoughts are great, and because thoughts are such a dominant part of who we perceive ourselves to be, again, the indoctrination that we're inculcated into from our birth winds up in our minds, right? The being that we're indoctrinated into being resides in our mind, in notions, in understandings of the self that are intellectual, things we've been told, stories, scripts, limiting beliefs, narratives, sociocultural narratives, narratives of belonging, historical narratives, all of that resides in the brain. And again, like the body, we don't want to dismiss the brain. The brain is critical, the brain is important, but the brain is also not who we are fundamentally. The brain is a part of who we are. Now, we do well when we honor the brain as a kind of a checks and balance for what's in our heart, what's in our soul. We use the brain to kind of assess what our intuition is telling us. We use our brains to assess what our emotional repertoire is telling us. We use our brains, obviously, to think things through and to process, but we don't live in our brains as if it's like a really high source of wisdom, because it's actually not. Living in our brains too much, which we do as a culture, as humanity as a whole, unplugs us from the higher socket of the universe. We're unplugged from our source. We're unplugged from higher sources of wisdom and consciousness that are so readily, able to be accessed, so readily. In fact, realms that are whispering to us that we can't even hear for the noise of our thoughts. Our thoughts are so loud and dominant, and they're not nearly as important or significant as we think. Our ideas are mostly, what goes on in our brain is mostly notions. A truth perhaps, but not the truth. So if we want to tap into a more expanded version of who we are, we tap into our souls and we tap into our emotions, okay? So we've done body, we've done mind, now we'll do heart. Our hearts are the seat of our emotional life, and we're just taught to stuff our emotions. We pretty much stuff them from birth. At the very least, they're pathologized. Those of us who do feel our emotions are often told we're too emotional, or we're too sensitive, or dramatic, or irrational, or whatever the case might be. So we put down people who feel a lot, and sort of see them as maybe deviant somehow. They should get a handle on themselves and pull themselves together. So we want to honor all of our emotional lives. We want to feel our feelings, because our feelings are our access to our truth, where we are in the moment. We want to have an authentic feeling response, allow ourselves to feel. Now, when we do feel, it's only going to be briefly. It's like a good cry, right? When we're crying, and it feels in the midst of it like we're never going to stop crying, right? We're so overcome with passion, water's rolling down our cheeks, and then suddenly we're done, right? Suddenly and unexpectedly the crying bout is over. That's the same as feeling our feelings. If we would only feel them, usually we stuff them, we repress them, we stuff them down, and then that means that they're sort of with us forever. We carry them, we drag them out. So some studies have shown that, if we feel our feelings, they last for only about 90 seconds, right? It's a very efficient process the body has for processing feelings. And feelings are our truth. Feelings plug us into how we feel, right? It's authentic and it's unique to who we are, how we respond to things, what our authentic feeling center is, what our emotional literacy is, what our sort of, read on the world and on things that happened. How do we respond to it as individuals? It's powerful. So it's very helpful to learn to feel our feelings, monitor our feelings, witness our feelings, honor our feelings, acknowledge our feelings, allow our emotional lives to have some precedence, to have some legitimacy, to carry some weight in our lives. Very, very important. So that brings us to the soul. the soul being the most powerful, vast, and expansive, perhaps the most important part of who we are. We are souls, and that's not so much what we're taught about ourselves in the emphasis on identity and the data markers that we all bear that distinguish us from others and that, put us into a kind of separation consciousness instead of a oneness or an interconnectivity consciousness. We are souls, and our souls are the sort of infinite, expansive, divine aspects of who we are, the immortal part of who we are, and it's also the soul plugs us into the higher realms. We could call it the quantum reality, the space the dimension beyond space and time. We all share a connection to the space beyond, space and time, the quantum sphere, the collective intelligence, the sort of a consciousness, a universal consciousness, a collective consciousness. Our soul is of those larger matrices. So it's really important that we honor what's in our soul. Great ways to plug into our soul is through meditation. Meditation plugs you into your soul. And honing your intuition plugs you into your soul, right? It gives you access to realms you wouldn't have access to if you rely purely on your intellect or your feeling or your body wisdom. The soul is the access to larger dimensions and larger spheres. That's why, say, as an intuitive, I can know things that would seemingly be impossible to know because, I'm plugging into my soul, which has sort of a vaster terrain, right? It's possible to know things with a capital K. So all of us have that ability, frankly. All of us have the ability to know things that would seemingly be impossible to know. But we have to access our soul in order for it to be possible. But if we do access our soul, then it's impossible not to access it, okay? So higher knowing, inner guidance, our inner compass, our intuition, our sixth sense, and our, like what I like to call high beam headlights on our life's road. Those things are of the soul. It is possible to drive on our life's road with our high beam headlights turned up, and we do that by plugging into our soul. There are ways to make our life more of greater quality, have a more quality life, more life in our life, and that's going to happen through plugging into our soul. That's where the magic lies, the pixie dust lies. So critical to honor our mind, body, heart, and soul. So again, these are just some of the access points for plugging into the possibilities for knowing who we truly are, going beyond what we're taught about ourselves and what we're indoctrinated into, plugging into the magic and the majesty, the wizardry and the miraculousness of who we truly are. So with that, I wish you freedom and empowerment and wholeness, and may you ask yourself the powerful question of who are you, and may you come away with unexpected and exciting and fascinating answers for yourself. All the very best. Much love. Bye.